Chapter 1. The Desolate Stretch. The highway stretched endlessly before Mark, a seemingly unending ribbon of asphalt cutting through the desolate landscape. It was the kind of road that seemed to lead nowhere, bordered by barren fields and gnarled trees that twisted towards the sky like skeletal fingers. Mark had been driving for what felt like hours, the monotony of the road lulling him into a trance-like state. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the road as Mark's car rumbled along the deserted highway. He glanced at the fuel gauge, the needle hovering dangerously close to empty. Panic clawed at his chest as he scanned the horizon for any sign of a gas station, but all he saw was the empty expanse of road stretching out before him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in shades of orange and purple, Mark's unease grew. The silence that enveloped him was suffocating, broken only by the low hum of his engine and the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. It was as if the world had fallen silent, holding its breath as Mark hurtled towards an unknown destination. Chapter 2. The Haunting Silence. Night descended like a shroud, cloaking the world in darkness as Mark's headlights pierced the gloom. Shadows danced along the edges of the road, their shifting forms casting eerie shapes on the asphalt. Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension as he strained to see through the darkness. The radio crackled with static, offering no solace from the oppressive silence that surrounded him. Mark fumbled with the dial, his heart pounding in his chest as he searched for a familiar voice, a shred of connection to the outside world. But all he found was the same empty hiss, punctuated by bursts of distorted noise that sent shivers down his spine. With each passing mile, Mark felt the weight of the darkness pressing down on him, suffocating him with its oppressive presence. He tried to shake off the feeling, to focus on the road ahead, but the sense of unease only grew stronger with each passing moment. Chapter 3. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Just when Mark thought he couldn't bear the silence any longer, a figure emerged from the shadows, standing on the roadside with their thumb outstretched. Mark's heart skipped a beat as he approached, his mind racing with uncertainty. He had heard the stories of hitchhikers who vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. But something about the figure's desperate plea tugged at his conscience, urging him to stop. As the hitchhiker climbed into the car, Mark could feel their eyes boring into his soul, their presence looming like a shadow in the darkness. They spoke in hushed tones, their voice barely audible over the roar of the engine. They spoke of a town just up ahead, a place forgotten by time, where the dead walked the streets and the living dared not tread. Mark's blood ran cold as they spoke, but he couldn't bring himself to turn them away. He tried to ignore the sinking feeling in his gut, the nagging sense that he was walking into something far more sinister than he could ever imagine. Chapter 4. The Descent into Darkness. As they neared the town, a sense of unease settled over Mark like a heavy fog. The buildings loomed like silent sentinels, their windows dark and foreboding. The hitchhiker directed him to a small motel at the edge of town, their voice barely more than a whisper in the darkness. Mark's footsteps echoed through the empty lobby as he approached the front desk, the air thick with the scent of decay. The innkeeper's eyes gleamed in the dim light, their smile sending shivers down Mark's spine. They handed him a key without a word, their gaze following him as he ascended the creaking staircase to his room. The room was small and musty, the air heavy with the weight of centuries past. Mark's fingers trembled as he fumbled for the light switch, casting the room into a dim glow. But even in the darkness, he could feel the presence of something sinister lurking in the shadows. As he lay in bed, the whispers began. Soft at first, barely audible over the sound of his own heartbeat. But soon they grew louder, more insistent, until they filled the room like a cacophony of voices from beyond the grave. Mark pressed his hands to his ears, trying in vain to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers echoed through his mind, filling him with a terror he couldn't shake. Chapter 5. The Mirror's Reflection. In the dead of night, Mark awoke to the sound of footsteps echoing through the hallway outside his door. His heart pounded in his chest as he crept to the bathroom, his footsteps silent against the worn floorboards. But when he looked into the mirror, what he saw sent a chill down his spine. His reflection grinned back at him, its eyes dark and hollow. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he reached out to touch the glass, but his hand met only cold, unyielding surface. The reflection's smile widened, its laughter echoing through the room like a death knell. Mark stumbled backwards, his mind reeling with disbelief. He rubbed his eyes, half expecting the apparition to vanish into thin air, but it remained, leering at him from the other side of the glass. He tried to tear his gaze away, to flee from the horror that confronted him, but he found himself transfixed, unable to look away from the twisted reflection that mocked him with every passing moment. As the minutes stretched into hours, Mark felt the darkness closing in around him, suffocating him with its oppressive presence. He could hear the whispers growing louder, their voices swirling around him like a maelstrom of madness. He knew that he had to escape, to break free from the grip of the mirror's reflection before it consumed him whole. With a surge of adrenaline, Mark lashed out, his fist connecting with the glass with a resounding crack. The mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, sending shards flying across the room like deadly projectiles. But even as the glass fell to the floor, the reflection remained, its twisted grin haunting Mark's every move. Chapter 6. The Innkeeper's Secret. Determined to uncover the truth behind the inn's sinister facade, Mark ventured into the depths of the building, his footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and Mark could feel the weight of centuries pressing down upon him as he descended deeper into the darkness. At the heart of the inn, he stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with ancient symbols and cryptic inscriptions. The air was thick with the scent of blood as Mark approached the altar at the chamber's center, his heart pounding in his chest. It was then that he realized the true nature of the innkeeper's intentions, the darkness that lurked within their twisted soul. As Mark studied the inscriptions etched into the walls, he felt a chill run down his spine. The words were ancient, their meaning lost to time, but their message was clear. The inn was a place of unspeakable evil, a gateway to the darkness that lay beyond the edges of reality. With trembling hands, Mark lit a torch and ventured further into the chamber, determined to uncover the truth that lay hidden within its depth. But as he delved deeper into the darkness, he could feel the darkness closing in around him, threatening to consume him whole. Chapter 7. The Unearthly Ritual. With a surge of adrenaline, Mark confronted the innkeeper, their laughter echoing through the chamber like a symphony of madness. But as he raised his hand to strike, the ground began to shake, the walls themselves seeming to come alive with a malevolent energy. Mark's vision blurred as he stumbled backwards, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He knew that he had to escape, to flee from the darkness that threatened to consume him whole. But as he turned to run, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. The walls closed in around him, their twisted forms reaching out to drag him into the abyss. Mark screamed as he fought against the darkness, his mind consumed by terror. But no matter how hard he struggled, he could feel the darkness seeping into his soul, devouring him from the inside out. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the darkness receded, leaving Mark gasping for breath on the cold, hard ground. He stumbled to his feet, his body battered and bruised, but his spirit unbroken. With one final glance at the inn, he turned and fled into the night, determined to leave the horrors of the abandoned highway behind him forever. Chapter 8. The Endless Nightmare. The darkness seemed to stretch on forever as Mark ran, his footsteps echoing through the empty streets of the cursed town. He could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on him, suffocating him with its oppressive presence. But he refused to give in, to let the darkness consume him whole. As he ran, he could hear the whispers growing louder, their voices swirling around him like a maelstrom of madness. He knew that he had to escape, to break free from the grip of the darkness that threatened to drag him down into the abyss. With every step, the darkness seemed to grow stronger, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare him in its grasp. But Mark refused to give up, to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume him whole. With every ounce of strength he had left, he pushed forward, determined to find a way out of the endless nightmare that surrounded him. And then, just when he thought he couldn't go on, he saw it. A glimmer of light on the horizon, a beacon of hope in the darkness. With renewed determination, he raced towards it, his heart pounding in his chest as he fought against the darkness that threatened to drag him down into the abyss. Chapter 9. The Eternal Echoes. As Mark drove away from the cursed town, he could still hear the whispers echoing in his mind, the echoes of a darkness that refused to be forgotten. But as the miles stretched out before him, he knew that he had survived, that he had escaped the clutches of the abyss. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Mark knew that he was free, that he had overcome the darkness that had threatened to consume him whole. But deep down, he knew that the scars left behind would never truly heal, that the echoes of the abandoned highway would haunt him for the rest of his days.